Hi, tkviper Tech here, and today I'm going to give you my first impression of the new 2021 MacBook Pro with the M1Pro and M1Max chip. On the left here is the 14-inch. Next to it is the 13-inch from last year. As you can see, the first major difference is the refresh rate. We have 60 Hz on the right and adaptive 120 Hz on the left. That means the refresh rate will change depending on the content you're looking at. Here in Launchpad, you'll notice the difference when we're scrolling left and right through the apps. A bit of a lag on the right. On the left, you'll notice it's much smoother and faster in response to your touch. And that's because we basically have an iPad Pro display, which have had this faster 120 Hz refresh rate for about 4 years now. And we're getting that on the MacBook Pros and also on the new iPhone 13s, the 13 Pros. One of the first complaints about this new MacBook Pro is the camera notch at the top. I don't think it's a big problem. It doesn't really affect your productivity since there's going to be a menu bar at the top anyway. Plus, how can you complain about that when in return you get a much bigger display with thinner bezels and basically the same form factor, maybe about a half an inch wider. Now let's look at some of the physical differences between the two. We have wider or bigger speaker grills because we do have that extra half an inch in width. On the back, the Apple logo is bigger, same material, reflective black material. And we don't have the taper edges anymore. It's a rounded edge, a boxy design, which is a throwback to older MacBooks. On last year's model, we only have 2 Thunderbolt ports on the left and a headphone jack on the right. This year's model, we have an HDMI port, Thunderbolt port, and an SD card reader on the right, 2 more Thunderbolt ports on the left with the headphone jack that supports high impedance headphones, and the return of the MagSafe charging port, which is great. You can see how strong these magnets are. They are not going to come off unless you really give it a good yank. Just like this, or you kick it with your leg, and that will save your computer from flying and crashing onto the floor. And on top of that, we get fast charging. 30 minutes will charge up to 50%, which is really neat. Let's launch another app here and check it out. This is Final Cut Pro, and we can see how smooth it is when we scroll through the timeline because of that 120 Hz refresh rate. Everything is snappy, the animation is smooth, and it'll only get smoother as they upgrade all the apps to take advantage of the new refresh rate. Another major difference is that we are getting all the function keys back and a bigger fingerprint scanner. We can adjust the volume, brightness, the playback buttons with a tap of your finger rather than using the touchpad or the touch bar that we've had for about 3 years now. The weight difference is about a pound. I don't feel like it's much heavier. On the bottom we have an engraving of the MacBook Pro and also bigger and taller rubber feet, which will overall give your machine better ventilation down there. Next, the camera has been updated to a 1080p camera. So finally we get HD camera on a MacBook, which has never been done before. Alright, we'll test this out with the Photo Booth app, and that should give us an idea of how much clearer or crisper your image is going to be. Unfortunately, Apple decided not to give us the super wide angle camera that they put inside the new iPad mini. Anyway, let's take a look at the difference between these two cameras. Zooming in closer, the image looks pretty sharp with the new camera system. And on the older MacBook, you can see a lot of pixelation around the edge of my phone and also around the bicycle mount that is around my phone. Back to the newer camera, which is much sharper. Now let's take a look at the items in the store behind me. On the older MacBook, it looks pretty bad. And right here, looks pretty sharp. So overall, the camera system is much better. No question about that. And now a quick look at the 16-inch MacBook Pro, just to give you a size comparison. If you don't mind paying an extra $200 and carrying an extra pound, this is your best option. You get a bigger screen, better speakers, louder speakers, and a bit of a performance boost in the super high power mode. But if you enjoy the portability of the 13-inch MacBook Pro, this 14-inch model is only half a pound heavier. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the speaker quality. clear winner here is obviously the new 14-inch MacBook Pro. Now the final question is it worth paying extra money for the new MacBook Pro? If you get last year's model to have the same 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, you're going to be paying only $300 more for the new 14-inch. You do get a better screen, bigger size, a brighter screen at 1000 nits instead of 500 nits. You get that ProMotion 120 Hz refresh rate, and you get mini LED technology, which gives you darker blacks. And you get much better speakers and of course a lot more power. But another question is, do you need all that power? If you don't, then the M1 MacBook Pro will be enough for you, and for most people I think. But if you're a professional and you deal with a lot of graphics, a lot of video editing and rendering, exporting, and you want to shorten the time it takes to release a project, then obviously $300 isn't asking for too much. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel tkviper and tkviper Tech, and also my rain channel, Japan Rainwalker tkviper. And if you're generous, you can drop me a tip at tkviper@gmail.com. Alright, see you guys next time.